I am Dr. Jason Siegel, and this is Neuro Now. Well, we're wrapping up Epilepsy Awareness Month, and I'm really honored to have the opportunity to talk to a couple of people who truly understand the trials and tribulations of epilepsy. Epilepsy is one of the most prevalent and disabling neurological diseases in America, especially in children. But it's not a disease that just affects the patient or affects one person. Epilepsy is a disease that affects whole families and support groups. Joe and Casey Spagnolo have a teenage daughter who suffered from childhood epilepsy due to a brain tumor, and I think we're really lucky to hear their story. We hope this interview reaches many parents and many family members of children with epilepsy, and that it gives those parents hope, and it gives them a peace of mind to knowing that they are not alone in this. If you find this video interesting, or you feel like you know somebody else who might find it interesting or helpful, please like. You can subscribe to our channel, share it with anybody you want to, and I hope you enjoy this interview. Thanks a lot. Thank you guys for being here, for telling us your story, and maybe this can reach other parents, other patients, and give them more information. So, I think really I gotta stop talking and let you guys tell us your story, about your daughter.
Natalie was born, it was very smooth, no difficulties. And about 3 days old, she started to like shake. And with the limited experience that I had a son that was absolutely fine. I kept asking my mom, like, is there something wrong? Is there something wrong? And she's like, well, it's definitely a little odd, but just take her to the doctor. So take her to the GP. He's like, I said, well, let's just watch it. And about 3 months later, I deployed to Iraq. And about 6 months into deployment, typically they're a year plus, my mom sent a Red Cross message, just said Natalie was, shaking more violently and making some noise, and that she thought she was having seizures. So I flew home as quick as I could, took her to the general practitioner, and he said, we are having a significant problem. You need to go to Vanderbilt. So I went to Vanderbilt, and they did an EEG, and she had about 60 seizures in a very short amount of time. And we started medicine, right? I mean, which is pretty much the typical track. Okay, we have diagnosed, I can see a focal point on the EEG. So I was told kind of, I don't really think an MRI or a CT scan is emergent. It didn't quite sit well with me as a parent, but I thought, okay, right now the crisis is getting the seizures gone. So we started with one medicine, and the seizures continued getting worse. And we started with two medicines, and the seizures continued getting worse. And at this point, we started having Gromals. And then we added the third medicine, and then she had a massive reaction to the third medicine. It was violently puking, diarrhea, and then we added phenobarbital. And then she was having a massive Gromal, she started to aspirate. And when I was hanging her upside down on the phone with EMS, waiting for the ambulance to come, and I noticed that her pee was brown, and she had went into acidosis, which was basically kidney failure from all the medicines that she was on. Even though they had been monitoring that, obviously doing blood work. And when I went back to the neurologist, it was apparent that we needed to do an MRI. And we did, and the tumor was quite large, and we didn't have very long for her to live. So we ended up moving to St. Jude. They didn't really like the shape of the tumor, what the tumor looked like, basically. And we moved to St. Jude, and Dr. Boop was her neurosurgeon, and he was in Arizona at a conference, I think, at the time, and I think he called me at 10:30 on a Saturday night and just said, I know you don't know me, and I don't know you. You guys have been through hell, but I think you probably have 3 days before your baby girl is dead. So if you can meet me in the OR Monday morning, I'm going to do, whatever I can. And he did. And he, sat there, and it was bedside manner. And I think that's what, through the whole process, I was craving as a parent, was just somebody to sit with me, because I felt so alone. I felt so isolated. I felt so uneducated. And I was so scared, thinking that I was one seizure away from my daughter not coming out of it. One more diastat kit of low respirations, and that was going to be it. Um, and after the first resection, we're in the ICU and she turned blue again. And I could tell she was aspirating. And I just hooked up the suction because that's what you do with mom with seizures. You just do it. You just
Mm-hmm.
act. And I just hooked up
Mm-hmm.
the suction and hit the button, and the nurses came running over, and she was having seizures. They wheeled her back into the EEG, and he's like, "She's having more seizures." And I'm like, "Well, I thought we already took the tumor out." Well, I told you there were spots that we couldn't take out. And I'm like, "Well, why are the seizures getting worse?" And he's like, "Well, I don't know." And then we had to do another surgery where we actually did brain mapping. So they took off her scalp and put all these wires on there to, resect this tumor and preserve her quality of life, which I thought was, super cool, super scary, super creepy. She had wires out of her head for 7 days, but they were so patient and so kind, and I never felt rushed. Right? I think in hindsight, as a parent who's watching their kid violently shake and gargle and, spit up and choke, I mean, like choke, um, I always felt rushed. I always felt like, well, you just add another medicine, you just add another medicine. When in fact, there was more to it. And I remember asking over and over and over again, I think it's time for an MRI. I think it's time
Mm-hmm.
for an And in hindsight, I think the only thing that I've learned is I'm her voice and I'm her best historian. So if one person doesn't listen, that's okay. That may not be your doctor. That may not
Mm-hmm.
be the practitioner that you want to take care of your daughter, but also you. And I get that there's an identified patient, right? That there's an IP in every treatment plan. But when you have a child with epilepsy, that has to involve the parent, and maybe not mandated, teaching, but just options. And the one thing that I did love about St. Jude is that there was um, group meetings for the parents
Wow.
and kids. And, as a psychotherapist by trade, I know that that's so beneficial. Tons and tons of research about group therapy.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody hates group therapy. I hate group therapy, but it is so beneficial, so beneficial. And just as a parent to know that you're not alone, I mean, you're just not alone. And it is just so scary. And I did feel alone. And I never felt like people would listen to me, like, no, there is something wrong. And, I carried a lot of guilt for a long time, a lot of guilt of like, I didn't do it, the woulda, coulda, shoulda. I should have done it sooner. I left my daughter when she was sick, I left to go deploy. And I wasn't here for her, even though I had went to the doctor several times. I
Mm-hmm.
thought I crossed my T's and dotted my I's and that she was safe. And, she wasn't. Even like when we were talking about treatments, even before we knew that there was the tumor, right? And we were talking about all these medicines. I remember asking the neurologist, like, well, is there another option outside of medicine, right? I mean, when we look at Eastern medicine and we look at Western medicine,
Mm-hmm.
there's just this huge cliche of Western medicine just pushes medicine, right? The pharmaceutical companies, medicine, 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 medicine. But later in those group sessions, I had all these parents telling me about the ketogenic diet,
Mm-hmm.
gluten-free diet. And then you're like, well, wait, what? This is an option? Oh, yeah, this is an option. And they're, do your research. And I'm like, oh my God, I am going to do this research. And I did. And I'm thinking to myself, like, well, how come this wasn't even talked about? And of course, severity, I understand. Like, I think we were past the point of, obviously, because there was massive tumor, but post tumor, I remember all these neurologists, and we had teams of neurologists, and they
Mm-hmm.
were like, she's never going to be off medicine. She's never going to be seizure free. All we're going to do is manage it. I mean, what, 8, 10 years? You haven't been on medicine?
And how
And
old is she now?
she's
What?
17,
17. Yeah. How old was she when she had the surgeries?
18 months.
18 months. and has been off of any medicines since she was what, 8 or 9? Wow, wow,
I say 8 or 9 because you start weaning them off, right?
yeah,
Like, it's not like a one and done. I mean, you start with two medicines, then you go down for one, you have a breakthrough seizure, so you stop, and then you add a little bit and wean it back off. But I mean, the ketogenic diet, I mean, you're talking about measuring, having a measuring cup
yeah,
in the kitchen, and it's almost like kosher. You know what I'm saying? Like everything is separate. And it was intense. And, my kids are Irish kids. So, I mean, they're only like 14, 15, 16 months apart. So I'm having like two babies, and cooking and cleaning and keeping everything, I mean, spotless because she's sick. Right. So, I mean, like just so much work, but it's an option. And I
yeah.
want parents to like feel empowered to have that voice and to say, you know, you may be a great doctor, but I don't like how you're talking to me. And you're talking to me like I'm a thing when really I'm a really scared mom. And I know as practitioners, sometimes you just get in the groove. Burnout is real, I mean, like, and sometimes they may be in a rush, but I want parents to feel empowered to know that there's options, there's other practitioners out there, there's other services like you, Jason, that you can pay for that, sure, it may cost a little bit extra money, but is it worth it? Absolutely. And such thing as diets, I mean, to look at her now and know where we were, I mean, and these are the top neurologists, top neurosurgeons in the country telling me she's not going to walk, she's not going to talk, she's not going to potty train. You're looking at this tumor returning in 7 years, blah, 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 blah. And every couple of years, we get the registry for St. Jude because they love to keep up with their patients. Do you still live at this address? Blah, 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 for the cancer registry. And I'm just like, yes, she's fine. And they're like, wow, this is amazing. Uh, so I realize that we probably have a success story and a miracle, that nobody else other than God gets the glory. But I do feel like, and maybe now just the society that we live in, that maybe not medicine is always the right answer for everybody with epilepsy.
Well, other than the ketogenic diet, were there other, non-Western or non-traditional things that you tried? I mean, clearly she's on some medicine. She had surgery. I mean, that was going to be a big thing. But ketogenic diet, what else did you try? What else worked? What else maybe didn't work?
We went gluten free. And, okay, so let's fast forward 17 years. What is she really diagnosed with? Right. So when we're diagnosing certain neurocognitive disorders, we're diagnosing off of the DSM, right, at this point in time, because there's no medical ICD-10 code, for post-operative, right? So right now, through her psychological report, she's diagnosed with autism because we see a lot of the sensory input, the desire, sensory seeking. We see a lot of the noise, can't be loud noises. And we keep her away from all those flashing lights, in Halloween and, all the
Mm.
typical epileptic things. So even though we're seizure free, we do avoid those. But we read a lot of research about being gluten free. And I took both of my kids and me off of gluten at 4. I mean, she was 4, so her brother was 5. And, I really do think that helps, maintain. And, perhaps it may be some sort of allergy or something, right? Like celiacs that we're unsure of. But, you don't fix what's not broken. And right now, the wheels are turning and we're just kind of.
Yeah. Sometimes we put people in an epilepsy monitoring unit to try to get them to have seizures. And what do? We give them bad nutrients. We don't let them sleep. We create an environment that stresses out their body, that then stresses out their brain. And, yeah, could gluten intolerance or just gluten, I mean, yeah, I don't think that anybody out there could say absolutely not. That has nothing to do with it. And as you said, at this point, off of medicines, and you kind of talked about some of her DSM diagnosis, but she's going to school. she's going to school, she's living a, a good, happy life. I mean, this is great. Yeah, why, don't rock that boat for sure.
Post-operatively, and at your recommendation even, and I thought that was kind of odd that you recommended that. Nobody else had ever recommended, for us to keep up with her eyes, and the eye pressure. And
Mm,
that's how really, how we all got involved. With me all of a sudden lost that eyesight in that eye. Everything had been fine for so many years. And now I can finally sort of understand post-operatively. So I think in hindsight, I probably would have been a little bit more to understand her, right?
mhm.
I mean, you're talking about epilepsy, like, seizure is so scary, so scary. I mean, crippling fear, crippling.
Yeah.
I remember the first normal seizure, standing, just standing there. And my husband's like, "Do something." Well, you do something. I don't know what to do. Like, I don't know what's even happening. And as they go on, muscle memory, you know what to do, right? You lay it down, you clear the crowds, because guess what? You're in the middle of Walmart right now. And here she goes down. And it's embarrassing, right? And it's shame. I did carry a lot of shame. Like, maybe there's something I did wrong in my life, that my daughters had this. Um, and avoidance, all maladaptive coping, of course. But, you know, not taking her to Walmart, because the last time we went, we had a seizure, and it was humiliating. She crapped everywhere. When you're putting a diastat kit up her butt in the middle of an aisle, and there's tons of people who want to record it and make a scene, and you're like, can I get some freaking privacy? You know? Um, so I don't know how to like convey that to parents other than it's not your fault. There's nothing you did right and there's nothing you did wrong, you know, and that we all just kind of have that burden, whether it be epilepsy, we were talking or something else.
Yeah, you really hit the nail on the head. I mean, that's something that is involved in so many. I've seen so many different neurological issues. Is the 2 points that you really hit? Uh, Guilt and second guessing. Boy, could was there something we missed that could have avoided mom having her stroke? Strokes just happen. And that these are diseases that don't affect one person. High blood pressure, not to pick on high blood pressure, but affects one person. But these really affect whole family structures. Social structures, caretakers. At any age, and there are diseases that just affect a single person, and you're right, as neurologists, as doctors, I mean, and I can't say I'm perfect at it, but it's something we think about is who's really involved with this disease, outside of the patient, because that's really 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 critical. It always amazes me, I've met a lot of moms, a lot of parents like you guys who have had kids who've had seizures for a long time, and that what to do better than sometimes some of our best ICU staff. I mean, somebody in the hospital has a stroke, a heart attack, or whatever. I mean, people are on it, Johnny on the spot. But boy, if somebody has a seizure, a grand mal seizure, I mean, I've seen very experienced critical care attendings just like freeze,
Yeah.
like, or whoever, and then mom jumps in and it's like, this is what you do. I mean, it's very impressive. And if somebody sees a kid have a seizure, sees a mom with the kid having a seizure, what should they do? I mean, they obviously shouldn't take out their camera phone and TikTok this. I mean, that's terrible. But what would you recommend for the bystander to do to help you as a parent?
Turn your back, space. It's already embarrassing enough. All we wanted to do was just get our groceries. Or you know what? When it always happened, when I'm standing in the pharmacy line, just trying to pick up her medicines. If there's another kid there, help mom. She can't console another kid who's petrified. You know,
Yeah.
I mean, I don't say it lightly, but my son had PTSD the entire scenario. Here I
Hmm.
was, my 18-month-old kid who was dying, and my son. I slept in the crib with my daughter, and my son was on the pull-out couch. Every needle stick, every central line, every port, every time it got clogged, every time she had a seizure, here he was. So she's having a seizure, he's sobbing.
Hmm.
And I couldn't do both, you know? And a lot of times he took a backseat. And that's mom guilt too, right? I mean, you get mom guilt from every corner. You get it from society, you get it from parents, you get it, and you definitely get it from yourself and your kids, you know? And to see what my daughter experienced through my son's eyes, it's really hard.
Where, through your experience, where should people go? What other resources? Where should they go finding to show that they're not alone?
You know, it's that stupid cliche of, if you can't find one, be one, you know? And I did. I remember running through Fort Campbell emergency room because the Diastat kit didn't work. So I didn't have time to wait for the ambulance. So you just strap your daughter in the car seat season. And I busted through hospital doors and she said, oh, well, there's like a 3-hour wait. And my 3-year-old is convulsing on my shoulder. So I said, well, that's not going to happen. So
Hmm.
I just walked through the back doors. And of course, they were like, oh my God, get a gurney. How many Diastat kits have you done? Blah, 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 blah. And as I stepped out after she was asleep, got all the meds and she a Valium to put an elephant down. And there was a lady in the waiting room. She was like, oh my God, my daughter has seizures too. And I was like, really? And she's like, yeah, that was really bad. And I just sobbed. And I was like, really bad. And she's like, I'll just sit here with you, you know?
Wow.
And you just look for opportunities, right? Like, and now with social media, I think it's a lot easier. You're talking about 2008. Yeah, 2007, 2008. I didn't have all that. It was the flyers in the
Yeah.
neurologist's office, right? Like, and Vanderbilt was good about that. But St. Jude, and probably because we lived there, it was like so easily in your face. So, look to social media, talk to your neurologist. You guys are almost like social workers too, right? Like you guys have a lot of resources that we may not know about. But you just ask. And if you can't find one, make one up. I mean, you're your best advocate. So if you know what you need, go find it.
You guys have just a tremendous story. You tell it very well. I really appreciate this, and hopefully, this reaches some parents or patients, and it gives them hope. It gives them insight. Is there anything else that you think people should know? Anything else that you've learned, lessons that you think could be helpful for others?
So sleep. I mean, sleep helped me. I mean, it was like melatonin. I need sleep to function. And it was really important for her too. I mean, I was super paranoid that if she didn't get enough sleep, we would end up
Mhm.
having.
It's the little things, and I've told so many parents or family members of patients in the hospital, like, yeah, hospital rooms turn into prison cells for family members. They feel like they can't escape. They feel like they're being, held captive. And I always say, go for a walk, go outside, get the sunlight, do all the things that your mom told you to do. Drink water, get sleep, eat fruits and vegetables. You go in, you just see a whole shelf full of like junk food, and that's the comfort food, right? That's like the stuff and that it makes you kind of feel good that you need in stressful times. But yeah, you got to take care of yourself. No, I think sleep is a very wise, simple but yet very wise suggestion for sure. Joe, anything you want to add?
Natalie's sign. She's gonna have a seizure. Smell bananas.
Tell me she smells bananas.
You told me that. Yeah, very interesting.
Oh, and an 18-month-old at that time couldn't tell me that she smelled bananas. But as she got older, she would say, well, Mommy, do you smell bananas? And I'm like, oh, crap,
That's right.
game on. But
Wow.
that was a really good point.
Yeah,
I
it's
didn't even
interesting
think
to
about
this day,
that.
like when she's a little bit off, Casey asked her, Natalie, you smelling bananas? And now she's 17. No, Mom, not smelling bananas.
Again, I really want to thank Casey and Joe for taking time to talk to me. And again, hopefully this brings awareness and peace of mind to parents, caregivers out there who have children suffering from epilepsy. You're not alone. You're your child's best advocate. There are a lot of support groups out there, and I'm going to put links in the description that go to some of the different support groups there are out there for epilepsy and children with epilepsy. Um, If you have any questions, please put them in the comments. You can always get a hold of us at office@yourneuronow.com, or you can reach us on any of our various social media outlets. Thanks a lot, and I'll see you next time.